Hey y'all, how you doing today? So I've actually been seeing a lot of questions about Nema in the chat, whether she's good or bad, where she's good or bad, and what her skills are actually useful for. So let's just get into the contract and I can explain to you a step at a time how she can or might not be useful for certain places and certain things. Alright, we have her pulled up here in the contract, and first thing I want to say is she's just ugly. She's ugly. Anyways, that's not what this is about. So we're going to look at her skills now. First skill being Sonic Dagger. Inflicts damage to the enemy by 70% of the attack. If the target is granted with weakening effects, it decreases the attack bar by 100. Of course, whenever you skill up her SSR card and this gets promoted, it will decrease the attack bar by up to 150. So a good tip with these like 110, 125 numbers, if you just sort of take off the last number, how it's like 150, if you take off that last zero, 15%, because attack bars in this game go up to 1,000. So if you either just like slice off that last number or put a little decimal in front of it, you know it'll be 12.5%, 15%, 11%. It'll make it a lot easier to keep track of how much attack bar she's actually decreasing and increasing. So this skill strikes me as mostly useful for trivia. We all know trivia is a big speed check. You pretty much need a high speed on all of your units in order to decrease the trivia attack bar consistently so that the trivia boss does not end up just wiping your team. So with her kit and plus her passive, which we'll get into later, it makes it a lot easier to lock down the trivia boss because the boss does not have immunity. You're entirely able to debuff and decrease the boss's attack bar as much as you want, and that's what makes that boss really easy. Next skill is going to be Tremolo. Recovers the HP of an ally by 19% of Nema's total HP and grants Tremolo for 2 turns. If we hold on Tremolo, we can see an ally granted with Tremolo recovers the attack bar by 100 when an enemy ends acting. Now, of course, whenever she has an SSR card and this is promoted, it increases the attack bar increase all the way up to 25%, which is pretty big. Especially for the arena, this is big if she puts this on an ally and then the enemy is getting a turn for every single one of their units. Basically, by the time 3 units, because your ally that has Tremolo's attack bar is still increasing on its own, by the time 3 units on the enemy team take a turn, you're pretty much 100% guaranteed that whoever has Tremolo on them is going to get a turn. This can lead to some pretty wacky combos because we know that Trevor, whenever he is attacked, it increases his attack bar. So what if Trevor has Tremolo and he gets attacked? His attack bar is going to go wild. He's going to get his rage skill, increase his attack bar even more. It's his rage skill, he'll probably kill another person, and then whenever the enemies start taking their turns, it's going to boost his attack bar all over again. There's a lot of combinations that I could bring up that this would be insane. I'll bring up one more. For example, if you're sitting in a rough spot and then you put Tremolo on a Lakshmi. Tremolo on a Lakshmi is basically saying you are not killing my team. Because every time the enemy takes a turn, if Lakshmi has damage share on your team, unless they're able to do enough damage to kill your entire team in one hit, then your Lakshmi is just going to get attack bar whenever their turn ends, and she will be able to recover, she'll be able to cleanse, be able to heal, put on more damage ignore. There's just some very wacky combos that you could pull out with this ability. Very cool. Next is going to be Dissonance. Inflicts damage to the enemy by 75% of the attack and decreases the attack bar by 200 with a 50% chance. Whenever you promote this, it goes up to 80%, which isn't quite enough. You need a little bit of accuracy to bring that up to 100, but it is a bouncing projectile that bounces 4 times to the nearest enemy. Inflicts 75% of her attack as damage and increases the attack bar down amount by 50 with each bounce. Now, this skill cannot be overlapped. Now, that might be a little bit confusing of a tooltip, so I'll break it down visually. You start an arena and you have your Nema. Say if your Nema goes turn 1. We're just going to pretend our Nema goes turn 1. You use this skill on an enemy, okay? It does a little bit of damage and it decreases their attack bar by 20% of the enemy's attack bar. Okay, now it bounces to the nearest enemy and it decreases the next target's attack bar by 25%, and that's 1 bounce. Then it bounces again to the next enemy and it decreases their attack bar by 30%. But it's not done because it bounces to another enemy and decreases that one's attack bar by 35%, but it bounces 4 times. So it can hit every single person on their team and bounce to that 5th enemy and decrease their attack bar by 40%. So you're essentially depleting an entire attack bar and a half of the enemy team, and it's spread amongst all the units. Now, the only thing about this is it says it cannot be overlapped. So if there's only 2 units, then it's only going to hit the first one and bounce to the second, and then it's going to stop. That's the other thing. If you use this on trivia, it's just going to hit the boss and it's going to stop. So a lot of these skills seem useful for like PvE content and not so useful for PvP, but also a lot of the skills seem useful for PvP and not so useful for PvE. So she pretty much has an ability for every situation. Moving on, we have her rage skill, Cheering Dance. Recovers the HP of allies by 9% of Nema's total HP and increases the attack bar of the allies, excluding yourself, by 50 per enemy. Promoting your rage card is going to increase the recovery by 25% of Nema's total HP, which adds up to be a pretty solid heal, especially because it's all allies. That's a game changer. That could entirely save you. Not only that, it's increasing the attack bar of the rest of your team. Not only that, If you have her exclusive equipment, which if you pull her under the banner, you get her exclusive equipment for free, increases your attack bar by 200 per enemy when using Cheering Dance up to 1,000. 1,000 we know is 100% of the attack bar, so if you're in the arena and you use this, 5 of the enemies are left, she just gets to go again. Or if there's 4 enemies left, she will recover her attack bar by 80%. And then this is still increasing the attack bar of everyone on your team by 5% essentially per enemy. So if there's 2 enemies, you can expect your entire team to net 10% of their attack bar. But it's the thing is, this can chain, because if she increases her own attack bar with that exclusive equipment, you can combo this. And imagine you use Cheering Dance to increase your entire team's attack bar, but then you combo it with Dissonance, and then you're decreasing the enemy team's attack bar. That's really, the combos are nuts. The combos are just really good, which yeah, that led onto the exclusive equipment. We already went over that now. Increases your attack bar by 200% per enemy, or by 200%, by 20% per enemy when using Cheering Dance up to 100. So again, on trivia, you're not really increasing the attack bar that much, but it's still, and you're not really increasing your own attack bar that much either you or your allies, but it's still there, it's still a heal. So it's really like not the worst, but it's not the best. A lot of these skills aren't the worst, but not the best in certain areas. For example, I would prefer to use Sonic Dagger in trivia, because trivia is the only boss. The boss is probably going to be debuffed, and it's a pretty decent attack bar decrease. Now in the arena, there's too many enemies for me to really choose one to debuff and decrease the attack bar. If an enemy is already debuffed, then you probably don't need to decrease their attack bar that much, because they're probably on the verge of death if you're about to hit them with a combo. Tremolo and other things seems very good in arena, because the more enemies taking turns, the more turns the person with Tremolo is going to be taking. But again, I'm just using Trivian as an example, okay? Because a lot of the bosses, it's just like kind of one boss. For example, Underground Refinery boss is just kind of one boss, unless she has robots out, of course. Experience Battlefield Floor 11 is one boss, so I could like list all of these bosses individually, but I'm just using trivia as the example. If you had Tremolo on an ally during trivia, then of course they're only going to get to increase their attack bar 1 time for every cycle it turns. And the boss probably isn't really taking turns on trivia, so this could pretty much be a useless skill except for a little bit of a heal on trivia. Dissonance obviously would be preferred to use in arena. The more targets you have, the more attack bar decrease you're going to use. And Cheering Dance, we just went over that one, but let's go ahead and move on now. Her skill card, this is her selling point. This is the main thing that's making her god tier in both PvP and PvE right now. When you have her SSR skill card, she gains a passive that increases the attack bar of all allies, excluding yourself, by 10% when the wave begins. So this is every wave, so useful in trivia all the way up to the boss mode, because first wave, your entire team gets 10%. Second wave, entire team gets 10%. Third wave, entire team gets 10%. It makes it a lot easier to speed check the boss, because I think for trivia, you need like 1300 or 1350 speed to outspeed the boss. That makes that much easier to accomplish for your entire team. So not only is that useful in PvE content, but everybody knows the speed meta in Arena right now is pretty whack. Speed was already running the game in Magnus season, and now that we've moved on to Nacri season with the addition of NIMA to our roster, it's not really changing the meta. It's still all about speed, all about, can I get off my Magnus provoke turn 1? Can I get off my Madeline pull turn 1? Can I get off my Ziv Farius combo turn 1? And then just basically make the rest of the match a cakewalk. And that's just so much easier to do if you have a basic 10% of your attack bar being increased right off the bat. Very, very useful skill card and passive. We are also coming in with a unique collection effect to increase our Neostones in battles. So if you use her, so if you have her leveled up and stuff, and then you go into your mercenary missions, you're going to be netting more Neostones. You can probably get like 10,000 a day doing this, which is very nice. Under her abilities, she has effect accuracy, so you really barely need any to make sure that your Dissonance is hitting effectively if she's fully skilled up. She also has crit resistance and crit damage defense, so if someone's building a heavy crit damage build, it's not going to be doing as much to her as it would to somebody that didn't have these abilities. And last, before we go ahead and jump into the battle simulator, we'll look at some of the reviews. I don't expect any of these to be too useful. Like if you got it. Use either with a true healer or another semi-healer, since she's a semi-healer. Gives so much extra turns to your main DPS. That's definitely true. She will give a lot of extra turns to your DPS and to pretty much your entire team. But he's saying that her heals are a little bit underwhelming, so if you're trying to focus on a healer, you might want to bring a second healer. Now, let's just go ahead and jump into the preview so we could see some of her abilities in real time. So what we like to do is we like to see how they perform at base. This is going to be Nema at base. First of all, the range on that first skill is freaking nuts. You can hit them from very far away. She's aggro with that dagger right in the freaking chest. So yes, and if the enemy has a debuff, that would also be decreasing the attack bar of that enemy as well. Tremolo, we could grant Tremolo on our ally. Unfortunately, the AI in the simulator doesn't take a turn, but basically, if the enemy was taking a turn, it would increase his attack bar by 25% every time the enemy took a turn. And last is going to be Dissonance. Watch this bounce. Now, it was a little fast, so we'll go ahead and slow it down so that we could see. If we see while it bounces, we got 1, 2, and then 3. It hit the guy at the top whenever the camera was changing. But you'll notice that it doesn't just chain bounce. So how these two are in the range, it bounces 1, 2, but it doesn't hit the third person. So they need to be in the range of the initial circle for that to actually hit the enemy. It's not just going to continuously bounce and chain, increasing its range as it goes. Last is the rage skill. As she uses this, there will be... Oh, I still have it on ×1. Hold on. That was pretty slow, but... She uses it. It will increase the HP of enemies and then increase the attack bar of allies as well. Oh, look. Are we actually increasing his attack bar? We are. The robot's attack bar is increasing. What happens if we get it to full? Does he get to take a turn? Hold on. Let's see. Come on, man. Do you get a turn? Am I going to get to use a turn on the robot? Oh, it's not going to let me use a turn on him. But you can essentially see how much attack bar it was increasing. This is not the Nema that we'll be using because this is just whenever we get her at base. You always want to plan to use a fully built unit whenever you're planning and testing out that unit. So we'll go ahead and pop everything up to max. Abilities fully upgraded. So now the range is still the same, but if the enemy was debuffed, the attack bar decrease would be doing more decrease than it was doing initially. Tremolo, again, still just to heal, but if the enemy was taking turns, it would be increasing his attack bar by even more than it was at base. And then, of course, its range does not increase, so you still need to make sure that everyone is in that circle for that to be effective. Now, and then the rage skill, it's pretty much the same thing. So her kit, its usefulness increases, but like the mechanics of it don't really change that much. Like the range, the radiuses, the distances that you can cast them don't really change. But even without range increases, that's a pretty big range. So if you could get 2, 3, or 4 guys in there, that's still a lot of attack bar decrease that you're getting. She seems very useful and efficient for your team. She's just a very good support in increasing the attack bar of your team. Of course, the more turns you're taking, the faster you're able to accomplish your goal, no matter what it is. The less turns the enemy is taking, the harder it's going to be for them to defeat you in whatever you're doing. So I would definitely recommend a dash set to get as many turns out as possible. You want her to be taking as many turns as possible, taking advantage of her entire kit. And then with speed on the gloves, I would probably recommend HP on the boots in the ring because her heals are a little bit underwhelming, but they do scale based on her HP. So the more HP she has, she's going to be doing more healing overall. And then of course some resistance and just like fluff stats, defense and stuff after all that, so that she doesn't end up getting locked down. So I'm also going to go ahead and be recommending my top 3 rage cards that I would select for her and explain to you why I would pick these. Now, one of the really good ones that I would pick would be the Speed Signal Rage card because it increases the attack bar of all allies by 100 when the battle begins. So if she's already increasing the attack bar of all your allies with her passive, this essentially doubles that. And instead of just 10% from the passive or 10% from the Rage card, you have 20% of your attack bar being increased just for entering the battlefield. Of course, that was more of a PvP card, so on the same page looking at the PvE version, this one fills up her own attack bar by 200 when moving on to the next wave. So instead of just taking advantage of your entire team getting 20% of their attack bar on the first wave of like trivia, you can ensure that since her passive doesn't work on herself, that she would be getting attack bar increase every wave as well, and it would be 20%. Another very important card I would recommend for her might be your Speed Supplement Rage card, because it increases her attack bar initially whenever the battle begins. So if your focus was more on her getting turn 1 instead of like your Magnus or someone else, you could use this card on her to ensure that she gets one of those first turns so that you could take advantage of whichever skill in her kit you need to use at the time. And the number 1 card I would recommend to use for her would be the Emergency Speed Upsuit Rage card. Of course, all of these cards are situational. You can choose whichever one you would prefer based on where you're going to be using her the most, but this one recovers the attack bar by 10% whenever you're inflicted with damage that's 15% or above your total HP at once. So whether you're in PvE content or PvP content, if she's being focused in PvP because the enemy isn't taking as many turns as they'd like to do, so they start to focus on her, then she's going to be taking a lot less damage. For if she's being built tanky, she's not going to be that easy to one-shot initially, so especially with like multi-hitters like Marissa and people like that, for every 15% of her health that she takes, she's going to be getting a 10% shield. Of course, if they do 50% of her HP, she still only gets the 10% shield, but it makes her live a lot longer, especially in a situation where she might be focused. And that's my general consensus on Nema, guys. I wanted to put this out because I looked her up on YouTube and I really didn't see any videos about her at all, and I wanted to put a little bit of insight into her kit on where it could be useful and where it might be less useful. So hopefully if you had any questions about her, that might alleviate some of them. Don't forget, if you still have questions, you can join the Discord. We have veterans and new players there alike that like to answer questions for anybody that has a question. Feel free to pop in there and just post whatever you'd like. But other than that, that's going to do it for me today, y'all. I'll see y'all later. Bye.